Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA Nations round number 8 at Autopolis in the Group 2 car. Starting from P4, I managed to do a fairly solid qualifying. It wasn't a perfect lap, we had potential to go a couple of attempts faster, but still happy to get ourselves ahead of some very fast drivers. This was another 3k plus lobby, as you can see, field full of very high rated drivers all the way through the field. Starting from P7 there, you can see Saka 996. And all the way through the field, there was very good drivers here. LZR Thomas, otherwise known as M Thomas, in P8. RC Snake in P9, in P10. I think VPN was down quite far back. I think in P11 had a lot more potential than that. I don't think he quite hooked his qualifying up. You can see there in P11, VPN there. Didn't really manage to probably get the best lap in qualifying, because I think in the first race he might have actually qualified a bit higher up. I can't exactly remember. This was the race number 2. I only did 2 races, obviously, because we managed to score reasonable points in this race. Going through the field, very high rated drivers all the way through to the back. I think that's used to be a VP driver there, starting from P14. Probably changed names to VLX. A lot of VLX drivers in this in these GT Sport races now. They seem to be a new team with a lot of drivers participating for them, and all the way through the grid you can see there Indy Food starting all the way back in P18, obviously not hitting a very good qualifying time, actually using the GTR I think there, which was probably the wrong choice of car because of its qualifying pace. And then in P20 there, SRC in seeking. That's the issue. This is why most drivers went for the NSX, because it was better in qualifying. So we're going to start this race on board, obviously driving from the gameplay camera, and we've got the replay camera in the bottom right hand corner. So main aim of this race was just to stay out of trouble and to try and bring it home in the top 5. I was pretty sure that Org would have slightly better race pace than myself, but the one thing about this track is it's extremely hard to do any sort of overtaking on, due to the dirty air that you pick up from the car in front. When you're in a slipstream with the other car in front, you tend to lose downforce, and in Group 2 it's quite extreme. It's really hard to stay with someone, so even if you are faster, you tend to struggle to make this way past. As you can see P2 there up front trying to make a move straight away past P1, because he obviously knows about the dirty air and how hard it will be for him to actually get past sitting in that slipstream. So he's going to go very aggressive on that one. That's the best opportunity to do it when the cars are very close together, as once you start getting in the rhythm and you start getting the slipstream effect, you tend to find the cars drop back about 7 tenths, 8 tenths from each other, and you see equal gaps from one car to another car to another car. As we see in front of us during this race, you can watch this on the live stream as well, P3 was lagging very aggressively on the first lap, and I was a little bit worried about that, because obviously one thing you don't want is a car to be like lagging forward and backwards, and it can actually cause contact even when you're not near them. So I was a little bit worried there as we go through to the TV replay camera, and everyone seems to get away at the start fairly clean and tidy, no real issues. We've got a bit of a gap to Org behind us, who wasn't really pushing too hard aggressively on this opening lap, as we have a little oversteer moment there. Maybe Org was saving his tyres. I did think about one thing about this combination was it was possible to no stop it if you were extremely kind on your tyres, if you're really good with tyre wear. Obviously recently I'm not as good as I was before the older tyre model they had. I do struggle a little bit more now with the tyre wear, so there was no way I was going for that with this car. We did try it in the stream and it just wasn't going to work for myself. I decided to go for the pit stop strategy, but there was drivers that were practicing. I knew TRL Org would know about this because he would have been practicing with TRL Lightning. I seen them in lobbies practicing together, so I knew that they were very likely aware of the strategy of doing the no stop, so it was likely that he could do it if he wanted to. And the way that he was staying back kind of looked like he was just looking after them tight. He wasn't being aggressive and driving very close to the rear of my car, but obviously it was hard to know whether that was due to the being in the slipstream or if it was due to him just looking after the tyres. But I did have a suspicion that he was just saving tyres and sitting back there for the no stopper, and that's why I'm just trying to stay with the drivers in front really and try and keep it smooth, still trying to look after tyre wear myself, because I did know about how important it was at this combination to try and keep the tyres in good condition, just so that your tyres don't drop off too much on the in-laps, because we all know about this track with the tyre wear situation, and if you go for the undercut you can very likely pick up quite a few seconds, 2-3 seconds, maybe more on some cars ahead. So there was an opportunity to do an undercut, even though the plan of this was to pit lap 5. There were some drivers that could possibly pit lap 4 and then have really worn tyres towards the end, but because of the slipstream it's very hard for them it's very hard for you to get past drivers like that. If your tyres are only 1 lap newer than the car in front, it's really difficult to make a move on someone. So had to bear that in mind, especially with the ability to do a no stopper here. The tyre wear was aggressive enough to make you want to pit, but it was still possible for some drivers to keep and maintain lap time. So quite an interesting race in terms of the dynamic of the two different strategies. You can see starting to lose a bit of time now to P3, where we're dropping out of that slipstream range, but what you can see is a very similar distance between P1 to P2 to P2 to P3 and myself, where it's cars struggling to stay close to each other, but you can see Org is managing to stay quite close to myself, so it looks obvious that he's got a good race pace, and if he's looking after tyres, we're able to maintain that race pace. He's going to be very strong in terms of towards the end of the race, will he be able to jump us and stay ahead of us, obviously with the no stop strategy. But now we're driving quite well at this stage, trying not to make any mistakes, because one thing I didn't want to do was just bin it and lose multiple positions, obviously. So trying to maintain a good pace, solid consistency as well, just trying to keep it consistent. That's the main thing. When you're looking after the tyres, one thing you don't want to be doing is obviously sliding around and drifting through corners, and trying to be smooth on the throttle as well to look after the rear tyres, just so that we get good traction out of the corners. And at this stage you can see Z-Kip there seems to be staying quite close to P1, but we're losing a little bit of ground to P3 now, and P3's losing a little bit of ground to P2, but we're maintaining quite reasonable okay speed. We have raced Z-Kip before on a daily race round there, and he was insanely fast. I think I've improved quite a bit at this track with this car since then, obviously through doing that daily race, and obviously with the first race we did here. We did the first race, obviously we got an okay result in that. We didn't qualify particularly well, but we managed to get it into, I think we might have just about been around P10 or P11, something like that at the end of the race. It was a very static race, not much going on, so we're not going to upload that race because there was literally no overtaking in it. It was just following the leader and no action at all. But this was a little bit more interesting, this race, as you can see there now. Starting lap 4, we still got all behind us, but we're still staying with these group of cars just up ahead. We're not losing massive amount of time from P3. We're just outside the slipstream now, but that wasn't really the worst thing that could happen, because once you're outside the slipstream, you get a little bit more downforce, which can then help you out in terms of looking after the tyres, because the rear will not lose that traction as much. It will tend to grip a little bit better, so you tend to look after the tyres just a fraction more when you're slightly outside the slipstream. So for me, it's not the worst situation. We've got all very close behind us, but then a little bit of a gap there to P6, and then a further gap between P7 and P8 a little bit further behind. So in terms of cars that were looking like they could get the undercutters on this lap, it was looking like possibly Org, if he was going to pit now, would definitely be able to get a massive undercut, and also P6 and possibly P7, if they were to pit now, possibly might be able to get an undercut. But again, it's very risky, because you do run the risk of picking up traffic. Although looking at the track map, you could see that the traffic was very closely packed together, so if you pitted now, you probably would come out behind last place, because obviously in these top split lobbies, the drivers are all very high rated drivers, very skilled drivers, so you do tend to find that even if P20 is that far back, he's probably going to get ahead of you once you pit anyway, because the pit lane loss, I think it was about 17 seconds, as we see Oscar Ruse from P6 actually dives in the pits and goes for that undercut. It looks like he was the only driver, possibly I think LZR Thomas, M Thomas, otherwise known as M Thomas, also went for that undercut there on lap 4, but Org staying out, which there kind of made me think that he was on a no-stopper at this stage of the race. We dropped back a little bit from P3, lost a bit of time on that lap, not the best lap at all there. Obviously tyre wear kicking in and losing a bit of pace to them lead drivers, but we're still close enough to, possibility of picking up quite a good result in this race in quite a high rated lobby. Like I say, this lobby was over 3k, I think it was a 3k lobby, just over, so very competitive lobby, and a chance of some reasonable points if we can maintain this position or stay in the top 5. There's still a chance of 2k plus points, which for me would be quite a result in the Nations. I've not had the best of luck or best results in this Nations Championship, and if I get over 2k points, it should bump me back into the top 10 in the Nations overall points ranking, which would be nice to be back up there, even though we've not had a particularly great season with many big point scoring rounds. So just trying to keep it nice and smooth now for this in lap is really important. Obviously we saw Oscar Ruse go in the pit, so it was really important to pick up a reasonably good in lap and just keep it nice and smooth. Try not to make too many errors. We've actually looked like we gained a little bit on P3 on this lap, not a massive amount, but we've not really lost anything out now once the tyre wear is kicking in. And P2 there is not too far up ahead either. you can see there, just as he goes through that final corner, and he's going to dart off into the pits now, is Zkip. Zkip looks like he's actually stayed out there, so was he going for the no stop? And we nearly binned it into the pits there, very close to running into the wall, but Org stayed out as well, which is really important. So it looks like the possibility that P1 is going for a no stopper or extending the first stint because he's got more pace. He obviously saw the gap behind him, so maybe he was trying to give himself better tyres to attack the car in front, but Org could also be doing a similar strategy. It'd be really interesting, although Org was on the threat from undercuts. As you can see there, we've been undercut by Oscar Roos GT by the NSX there, so he's managed to get the undercut from pitting that lap earlier, and also LZR Thomas nearly picking up the undercut. But importantly for me, I managed to come out the pits ahead of M Thomas there, or LZR Thomas, and that was massively important to be able to come out the pits there just that fraction ahead, because if we would have got stuck behind, we could have lost massive amounts of time, and it would have been really hard to actually get an overtake done in the dirty air. So now we've got this little bit of clean air to the car in front. We've got to try and keep it consistent and slowly work our way back up to P11. But what you can see up ahead is there's a number of cars that have not pitted yet. We're down to P12, so there are a few cars that haven't pitted that are probably maybe extending this stint, or are possibly trying to no stop this race, which means we're going to have to do some overtaking and some quite aggressive driving. Hopefully though, I was hoping that a lot of these drivers wouldn't be too aggressive with the strategy, because in general, when you're on a no stop strategy at this stage of the race, it's not a good idea to defend it too aggressively, because if you do, you tend to lose more time than you would gain. So you tend to, it's best just to let drivers through and just pick up their slipstream and help you out down the straight, and then you're going to lose that slipstream anyway. So you're not really going to be able to fight people that have pitted at this stage of the race. As you see there, Zkip into the pit, so he's going for the strategy of doing an extended stint on the first stint and having better tyres on the second stint, obviously trying to find a way past the car that was in front of him. Org going for a no stop strategy, as you can see, not pitting. It seems like a few cars are thinking of that strategy. We're up to P9 now with a few cars that have pitted there, but you can see Zkip there into P7, but he's got fresher tyres, so he's going to be really hard to get past. But you can see he's getting held up now by a lot of traffic that's in front of him. These no stoppers are causing him issues. Obviously this is not what he would have wanted in this race. He would have wanted to be out past them and being able to put pressure on the lead drivers, but he's in a bit of a situation now where he's lost out quite a few seconds. If you think about where he was when we went in the pits, how close we are to him now, but he's managing to get past one of the drivers that's on a no stop strategy, and now Oscar Roos is going to get a little bit held up through that long fast left hand corner. We're going to just try and keep it nice and smooth and hope we get we catch these drivers up in a place that we can get the move done without losing too much time. As you see there, Oscar Roos goes down the left hand side, tries to keep it tight to the apex, and he's going to get that move done and put himself up into P7. So now we've got that GTR in front of us, and we're going to hopefully get this move done fairly fast. You can see we're going to lose time now behind this driver as we go through this really fast long right hand corner. This is where we're going to lose time if we're going to try and make a move. You see we've got two drivers there struggling with tyres. We're going to go wide there and then cut back on the inside and just dart it up on the inside, and we make that move, a really important move there, and just slot into P8. And now we're going to have to see if we can get past P7, who is also on that no stop strategy. So we're going to go left now and then do exactly the same thing, dart it in on the right hand side, hold a very tight line to the apex, and we get them moves made. Really important that we've done that. You can see that LZR Thomas has actually caught back up to us a bit there. You can see on the bottom right hand corner on the replay camera how close he is. So he's managed to gain about a second on us in there. He got through them very cleanly. We got through as cleanly as I think we could have done. There wasn't really any other opportunities to make the moves. We were quite aggressive with the moves, to be fair. We had to do that, and we made our way through that traffic fairly fast. But you can see we did lose a little bit of time to the drivers up ahead. You can see there, I think it's Zkip got through really quickly. You can see how far ahead he's got. He was only about 1.5 seconds ahead of us, and now he's managed to shoot off into the distance there. He's probably about 3 seconds ahead already, so he's gained a good second and a half from that little bit of traffic. Although he's probably lost out in terms of his battle for the win in this race. I think he would have had the pace to take the win in this race. I've raced him here in a daily race, and his pace was pretty much unmatched to what I've seen. I think it was verging on lightning type speed. As you can see just in the distance there, you can see him going through that corner. But now this situation now was quite okay for myself, because I know that I've got LZR Thomas behind us on older tyres. We're going to be able to cover that off. That's not really going to be a threat. We should have the pace to pull away. We were pulling away when we had fresh tyres, so on the first stint when we had equal tyres. So now that we've got newer tyres, we should be okay on that front. But now it's going to be a case of, can we catch up to P6? You can see the Grasser there letting Oscar Roos through. Very sensible driving by Grasser 91. This is the type of driving that you can tell that Grasser is an experienced driver. He knows that his strategy is obviously he's on obviously a compromised strategy. His tyres are totally gone, so he's just letting drivers through and not holding people up. And you see in the mirror there, he just completely went wide and then tucked back into my slipstream. But this really surprised me now, because we're about to start lap 9 and he's actually going to pit on that lap, which is really baffling, because I think it probably would have been best for him just to take the pain now and stay out to the end, because it's lap 9. He's only got 3 more laps to go. A pit stop would cost you 17 seconds, so he would have had to be 6 seconds a lap, lose 6 seconds a lap, and I think his pace was probably good enough to not lose that amount of time. So possibly would have been best staying out, but no one knows how bad his tyres are. They might have been on the verge of completely dying off in the rear, who knows. But we're now up to P6, aiming for that top 5 position. We've got Oscar Roos in front of us. We're starting to put some pressure on him now. You can see his tyres obviously that little bit older. We've got the slightly fresher tyres, but again, when we're in that slipstream, it's really hard to put the power down. We actually did that corner really well considering, and we're picking up that slipstream now in the acceleration zone and into the heavy braking zone. The tight hairpin, very tricky corner to pick up, and you see there Oscar Roos just running a little bit wide. We get on the throttle nicely there, and now going to try and carry on as close as we can through the high speed corners where this slipstream really does take effect. However, just on the curb there, Oscar Roos put the power down and lost control, and that's an easy position gain. We're up to P5, so thankfully for us, he made the mistake. We were starting to put a bit of pressure on, obviously getting into the slipstream, and with the fresher tyres, who knows if we would have been able to make a move and get past. It would have been extremely difficult, I think. However, with that mistake there, we're now up to P5. You can see there TRL Org still in P1, and you can see on the map just how far ahead he is. So he's doing a great job with that tyre management. However, his tyres are going to start dying in these last 2 laps quite drastically. They start being probably 4 or 5 seconds a lap slower. So it's going to be interesting if he'll be able to hold on to that position. It's probably unlikely he's going to be able to hold it off from P2 and P3, but Zed Kip seems to be the one that suffered from this situation. You can see that he's actually dropped through extending that first stint and now putting himself in a situation where he's getting that dirty air in the slipstream. He's now in P4, so he could have been battling for the win in this race. Would it have been better for him to pit on lap 5? Who knows? He probably wishes he did now, because the amount of traffic that he put himself in, and this is the danger of always extending your first stint or anything like that, or the traffic and the different strategies come into play, and people just get put into places where they shouldn't really be. He should have been fighting for the lead, but now he's obviously fighting for P4 and for P3 pretty much, whereas he was attacking P2. Obviously Org is going to be struggling now at this stage of the race. We pretty much settled for this position now, P5. I was quite happy with this. We've got a gap behind us, a controlled gap. We've got fresher tyres, and I pretty much knew I didn't have the speed to really do much about Zed Kipping from. So we just pretty much settled for this, trying to keep it consistent, try not to make any mistakes, and just try and bring it home now in P5 in this nation's top split race as we come through to the end of lap 10 and about to start the final lap in this race. Just trying to keep it smooth on these corners. These corners can really catch you out if you run a little bit wide, and you can lose a massive amount of time. And this little few corners here are really tricky when the tyres are going. You have to be very delicate on the throttle and sometimes upshift it just to stop the rear losing control as we go over the line. And now we head for the final lap in this race. You can see that Org's lost 1 position. He's down to P2. He's obviously going to be holding on for that position as much as he can now in this final lap. He's not going to give up positions, obviously, with the no-stop strategy. If it was like lap 7, he probably wouldn't fight it too much, but on the final lap, he's going to be fighting every corner, and that's good for us because who knows what could happen up ahead. It was an opportunity, there's a chance that cars could get into incidents, penalties could be picked up. So for me, I was just trying to keep it consistent and not worry about overdriving it and making a mistake myself, because we've got P6 covered off. There's no chance really of them catching us up. We were actually a little bit faster at this stage now. Started to pull away on the final lap with the fresher tyres, and you can see just keeping it smooth, going into the braking zones, trying to make sure I don't brake too late. Obviously when the tyre wear's kicking in, you do run the risk of running that a little bit late, as you see there, running a little bit late on the brakes, but still maintaining a reasonable apex speed and on the throttle reasonably well as we come through to the final sector now. This is the sector that can catch you out, which caught Oscar Roos out on that lap, just hitting that curb and getting on the power. Really enjoy this section in Group 2 cars. I love the flow of it, especially in the NSX. You just have to be really smooth and tidy, and it tends to help your tyre wear out. The smoother you are, the better it looks after your tyres, and that's why drivers like TRL Lightning were able to no-stop this race and actually take the win in other races. I seen I think it was the top 16 race, he actually won with a no stopper, so he did really well with that strategy. But you can see TRL Org lost out to them other drivers, but he did manage to gain time over ourselves, and we finished about 3-4 seconds behind Org. So maybe without that traffic that we had and the getting held up by Oscar Roos slightly with the dirty air, we might have been a little bit closer to Org, but I don't think we would have had the pace. I don't think we would have got past him. I think we would have still ended up just behind him by a second or so. So a great job by Org to put himself up that extra position by doing the undercut. You can see there from that race we pick up over 2,300 points in that nations race, which puts up to P8 in the UK, which is quite nice considering we've had a terrible season. And in the last 2 rounds, if we can pick up maybe one more race with the good points, we might be able to bump ourselves up into the top 6 or so in the UK. So hope you enjoyed that race. It was quite entertaining in the pit stop phase with the overtakes and people on different strategies. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. We'll be back with more streams and videos throughout the week. Thanks again, everyone. I'll see you all soon.